throws, and Hotvey charges it deep left field. No doubt about it. A blast from Hotvey for his 5th homer of the year on the first pitch he sees from T.J. McFarland.
What's in the den?
Welcome to In the Den, your inside look at the Fresno Grizzlies. I'm Tim Slack. This week, the Grizzlies were on the road in Stockton at Banner Island Ballpark, celebrating its 20th year of existence, and the Port celebrating their 20th year as affiliates of the Athletics. A great series this week that produced 3 extra inning games before Saturday, and Fresno on the road showing their mettle throughout the week. This week on In the Den, we're going to talk with the Grizzlies bench coach Dave Keller, who has over 40 years, 4 decades of experience in professional baseball, including the minors and the majors across multiple organizations. Learn what makes him still love the game so much. Plus, we'll take a look back at highlights from this week. But as the Ports celebrate their 20th season here at Banner Island Ballpark, we thought we might take you around a tour and see what makes this one of the most intimate ballparks in the California League. The Ports have been around since 1941 and played at Billy Hebert Field from 1950 until 2004, when the city of Stockton built Banner Island Ballpark, which has both baseball and American history tied to it. Charles Weber flew flags to celebrate Union victories during the Civil War on the site, giving it the name Banner Island. And while it's no longer an island, the nearby area in the San Joaquin Delta is known as Mudville and believed by many to be the inspiration for the famous poem, Casey at the Bat. The stadium itself is endearing to fans, as all 4,800 fixed seats are within 15 rows of the field, and the concourse behind it wraps 360 degrees around the stadium. Fans are never very far from the action, and the stadium boasts a number of unique picnic and group areas right off the water. And of course, the team known as the Ports has a fan-friendly mascot known as Splash, which is exactly what well-hit baseballs to right field and even center are prone to do: make a splash. Those that don't make it into the Delta could easily be picked up for souvenirs, and there's a great team store down the third base side filled with a bunch of items to pick up. Very similar to home, if I'm being honest, plus a great collection of bobbleheads that are not for sale. But the stadium is known to be just as friendly to hitters as it is to fans, and the Grizzlies hit a few to the neighbors that play basketball and hockey next door. But the California League has been here for over 80 years, and there's no reason to leave Banner Island Ballpark when they serve up classic ballpark fare, plus gourmet hot dogs and New York-style pizza. I tried a lot of the food during the series, and the pizza was solid. I also tried their gourmet asparagus dog, with spears of asparagus wrapped in bacon and dripped in horseradish, all while being topped in bacon bits. Yeah, that's double bacon. And while the asparagus is an alternate identity for the team, I would suggest you might want to leave it off, which still makes the dog only for the bravest of eaters. Welcome back on In the Den, and I'm joined by the Grizzlies bench coach, first year in the Colorado Rockies organization, but over 40 years of baseball experience. Also, Dave Keller. Thanks so much for the time. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I mentioned the extensive catalog of baseball experience. You have been with the Reds organization, you've been with the Indians organization, the White Sox, the Cubs, first year with the Colorado Rockies. So you've been all over the world with baseball. But really, first time living in California, right?
Yeah, first time in the California League, which is kind of interesting because I think I've been in just about every other league. Now the only one missing is the Texas League. So, and I don't really have any desire to be at a Texas League. So, yeah, this is a first for me, and it's been a pleasant surprise because the weather has just been awesome the whole time.
Well, I was going to say, there's a lot of people who say, 100 degrees is hot, but there's places that you've been that 100 degrees is the median the normal day for you.
Yeah, and with the humidity that goes along with the East Coast and the South, and obviously in the Caribbean, I mean, this weather's been outstanding. It's great to play baseball in, and it's great for our kids to develop in.
So I know that you said that you've been in the Dominican League, you've been all over the South. Have you kept track how many states baseball has taken you to?
No, every once in a while you think about what states you haven't been to, but those are kind of on my travel list with my wife to go, see those things when I'm not having to work.
Well, I was going to say, when you're not working, then it becomes vacation, but maybe a little bit different viewpoint. But you started out, you had a great career at the University of Northern Colorado. You get drafted by the Cincinnati Reds in the 80s. I was just wondering, who influenced your baseball career and love of the game growing up?
Well, obviously everybody starts playing Little League when they're old enough to play and they start practicing and everything else. But by far the number one guy in my head constantly on how I learned to play this game and everything is a guy named Tom Petroff. And Tom Petroff was the head coach at the University of Northern Colorado. He was just everything that is still relevant today, which is amazing in the way that baseball's changed so many times, so many years. There's so many things that I still reflect on and I think about and I remember based on things that he taught and things that he believed. And that's helped me in every year that I've been working.
I was going to say, the fundamentals then don't change. Even though we talk about all this new technology, all the different analytics, baseball's still the same sport at its core.
Yeah, I think if there's two things to look at when we're dealing with baseball now versus what baseball was like in the 80s, 90s, in the 70s, is that we evaluate the game differently now, I think. And people, even though we should teach this game very simple, because it should be simple because it's so hard to play, there's a lot of people that are trying to teach a different way. And so based on those things, I think that those are the adjustments that coaches are making, and especially coaches like myself that have been doing this for a long time.
Well, you speak about your coaching journey, and you started with the organizations I talked about, with the Reds, with the Indians, with the White Sox. I think something Grizzlies fans would get a big smile out of one of your early teams with the Kinston Indians. You had a former Grizzly manager on your team, and Steve Solis.
Yeah, and we were together over there in A-Ball in Kinston, North Carolina, as well as in AAA in Buffalo, New York. And this game is so funny sometimes because you come across people that you haven't seen for a while, and then all of a sudden you're with them for X amount of years, and then you're not with them, And that year that Steve and I were in AAA Buffalo together with the Indians, our pitching coach was a guy named Bud Black. So it's things kind of go full circle with a lot of different situations in this game. And I have several Steve Solis stories, and it's something that he and I could joke about all the time now.
What was it say? Those are more maybe inside jokes, right? And not for in the audience.
Well, they're not. They're pretty G-rated. I mean, I don't even know if G-rated even exists anymore. But just some of the funny things that we dealt with. Some of the players that I was managing at the time, some of the players that he was playing with, and it's really fun to look back on some of those teams that we had and some of the players that we had and people that you never thought would either be coaching or staying in the game. They're an integral part of professional baseball still. And, other people that you thought were going to make it to the big leagues never made it. And so, he and I talk about a lot of those people because we were around a lot of good players.
Fast forward, and so you have the ALCS championship team there, just one of the best teams of the 90s, the best organizations in the 90s. And then you go into the 2000 teams, and you're with the Cubs organization, and some of those guys that come through end up winning a World Series. Obviously, that organization, before you had gotten there, had just kind of been through the grinder. What was it like kind of seeing it from the ground level and then all the way up to all the guys that you worked with and seeing that kind of transform over the course of a few years?
Well, I started with them in 2004, and I was really encouraged by some of the position players that we had, and I thought they were going to make it to the big leagues. And at that time, their pitching was ahead of their hitting, organizational-wise. And so I felt I was the hitting coordinator at that time in the minor leagues, and I did it all by myself, where nowadays it's 2 or 3 guys. And that goes to show you how we are evaluating the game even more. And so I did it all by myself from the big leagues all the way to the Dominican Summer League. And I loved it, and I was extremely motivated to help our position players and our coaches catch up.
Yeah.
And I had some really, really good hitting coaches that helped along the way. And, as time went by, you could see it happening because we were developing a lot of position players. They were getting to the big leagues. And I think the bottom line on it with some of those guys was they were good enough to get to the big leagues, but they weren't good enough to be an upper echelon kind of player. But they got there and they improved, and that's what we wanted, and we had a catcher named Giovanni Soto who had a tremendous year at AAA, was minor league player of the year, and the next year he's the rookie of the year in the big leagues. And so we had some young players coming up, and then with the transition that happened in 11, 12, and 13, I was lucky enough to manage in Daytona at 13 and 14. And that's what all those guys were coming through with Javier Baez and Almora and Schwarber and Vogelbach, and Chris Bryant came into the picture, and Wilson Contreras.
Jeez.
And so with all of those players coming through Daytona, you could really see that the position player core group had kind of come together, and now let's go find some pitching so we can compete in the playoffs. And, that's what ended up happening. And I think one of the neatest things that happened, and something that gave me perspective to be able to compare, was that those feelings in like 14, 15, and 16 with the Cubs were a really, really strong reminder of me of what we had with the Indians from like 97, 98, 99, 2000. And that feeling was the same, even though it was different team, different organization, it was the same, which was really gratifying and really encouraging.
Well, you talked about that feeling, and I wonder, having spent so much time with guys who are just starting their professional careers, is there a common thread in all those decades? Is there a common thread with how hard it is just to make it to professional league, but then from that point on to turn yourself into a big league?
Yeah, it's like, what's your job? What's your job in the minor leagues as a coach? And what are you trying to get across to your kids year in and year out to get them to understand what it's going to take? And from day one, and I'll never change this in my thought process, but I think that we as coaches at the minor leagues, we are here to teach work habits, and we are here to teach these guys how to think day in and day out about what they're doing, because they're not used to it. These guys don't play every day. They don't go through the grind of the travel. They don't go through the grind of night games or a day game after a night game. That is an important thing that as coaches we need to understand, and we need to be aware of, and we need to make sure that that message gets sent to the player. So for me, from day one, way back, I've always been about work habits and trying to get the point across to the players that your ability is going to come out. How much ever ability you have, is it enough to be a big league player? I don't know. But my job is for you to be able to look back in 5 to 10 years from now, say, you know what, Dave, I gave it everything I had, and you know what, it just wasn't good enough. And I wasn't a good enough player. And nobody wants to admit that. It's hard to admit, but I wasn't good enough to be a big league player. But I realized that I gave it everything I had. And if the players can walk away from the game like that, there's no reason to make an excuse on why you didn't make it. Everybody's like, well, you didn't make it. Well, you didn't make it. 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 You didn't make you played professional baseball, but you never played in the big leagues. Well, that might be so, but you know what? I got the most out of my ability. And how many people in other sports and then just outside, in the normal working force that can say, you know what? I went into work every day and I gave it everything I had, and I tried to do the best I could, and I tried to help people around me, and I tried to make a difference in my environment, and I can live with that, you know, and that's what's changed, I think, a lot over the last 40 years of my career, is because kids change.
Yeah.
And there's things that change. There's priorities that change. There's cell phones. And so, I mean, so many things that you didn't have to worry about as a distraction or distractions now. And that's what makes it tough to get into the players on a consistent basis.
When you talk about that mentality as being a coach, being in your beyond, do you still enjoy it the same way you've been to your work?
Yeah, right. Doing it, obviously. I probably over the last 10 years, I have felt like this calling that I have now at this point in my career, what I'm doing is to help kind of preserve the integrity of this game, to help maintain the integrity, to help these kids learn where they haven't learned before, to help the coaches learn where they don't know things. And that's our way, I think, as veteran coaches in any organization, that's our way of kind of giving back to the game to help these players understand it. And, you know, sometimes I get caught up in telling stories about things, but the story has a meaning to it, you know, and it's amazing that something that happened last night in last night's game took me back to 1985 or 1986 when I'm coaching my first or second year, you know, and so you can pull from all those memories, you can pull from all those experiences to get your point across, to explain why you do or do not do certain things during the games.
Well, I think that's pretty cool. And, you know, it just the same way a coach passes that down to another coach or player, I think parents, fans pass that down to the next generation as well. And that's what I think makes baseball so special. But Dave Keller, really do appreciate your insight and your time.
Thank you.
That's Grizzlies bench coach Dave Keller. We'll be right back with In the Den right after this.
Hi, my name is Everett Catlett, and everybody calls me Big Cat. The nickname started with my brother when he played baseball and was much younger. Everybody called him Big Cat, and then once I took over the reins of baseball and he stopped playing, everybody started calling me Big Cat in high school and middle school, and then it rolled over to college as well. And then when we got to Rockies draft camp, I remember I was joking around with some of the guys in our class, and I was like, oh, my name's Big Cat, and it's gonna stick. And then that became a joke, and so everybody started calling me Big Cat, and now we're here. And I got our announcer calling me Big Cat on stream, and it's gonna stick. It's there.
The Grizzlies hit the road for the first time in over 2 weeks as they headed to Stockton to take on the Ports, the affiliate of the Athletics. 20-year-old Banner Island Ballpark was the site of the 6-game series, and the Grizzlies entered the week 8 games back of first place in the California League's North Division, a game back of Stockton for third place, with an opportunity to launch themselves into the conversation in the first half.
He throws and Hotvey charges it deep left field. No doubt about it. A blast from Hotvey for his 5th homer of the year on the first pitch he sees from TJ McFarland. And it's 5-1 Grizzlies in the 5th. 3-2 to Castillo. The pitch is hammered into left field. Back goes Patero, and it's over his head. It'll bounce up against the wall. Bernard scores. Fitzer coming around. The throw goes to third. Right is in safely with a head-first dive. Juan Castillo, a 2-run double, and a 3 RBI night. It is 8-5 Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies committed an uncharacteristic 5 errors in the win on Tuesday night, but they overcame it with a 5-run 8th inning. 4 unearned runs surrendered by Grizzlies pitching, but Brian Minna went 5 innings, gave up just 1 earned run, and then Justin Lohr with 3 scoreless innings didn't allow a base runner while striking out 3, and the Grizzlies take the series opener 10-6. The error spilled over to Wednesday as the Grizzlies got the first professional start from Fisher Jameson, and he threw 4 solid innings, just 1 unearned run, but the Grizzlies still had an early lead before falling in 10 innings despite taking a lead in the 10th, and the series evened up in what was the beginning of 3 straight extra inning games. Grizzlies offense on Thursday came out hot though. Francisco Garcia with a solo home run, his first of the year, backed up by Kelvin Hidalgo's 5th home run of the year. And the Grizzlies offense was rolling, but late mistakes again allowed the Ports back into it, and it set things up in the 10th for Derek Bernard.
0-1 pitch to Bernard. Hugie deals in. It's lined through the left side and into left field. Hidalgo will cruise home, and the Grizzlies take the lead in the 10th. An RBI single by Derek Bernard.
Francisco Garcia would add to it with a double off of the batter's eye in straightaway center field that cleared the bases. A big 10th inning for the Grizzlies, and so they even things up in extra innings on Thursday night, and they get the win as the bullpen did help close the door, and the Grizzlies picked up their 2nd win of the series and put them in position to go for the series split. And that means they turned to Jackson Cox on Friday night, and the right-hander was solid, backing up his best outing of the year last Friday. Cox threw 4 innings without an earned run, got some help from Jimmy Obertop behind the plate, cutting down the runner, and then Cox with a strikeout of Luis Freitas in the 3rd. In the 4th, Cox finished off his outing, getting Dylan Feen to strike out swinging. Justin Lohr, who had a great outing on Tuesday, came back 3 more solid innings, getting a strikeout in the 6th inning. But late mistakes cost the Grizzlies, and in the longest game of the season, the Grizzlies fell 5-4 to the Ports and evened up the series at 2 games apiece.
Clifford, the long at bat, allowed Espinal to steal. 0-1, and it's grounded up the first baseline and fair, right over the bag and into the corner. Hidalgo off to the races as it rolls all the way into the corner. Leary digs it out. Hidalgo's got a double, and the Grizzlies have a 1-0 lead in the 3rd.
That lead on Saturday night would turn out to be the final lead of the weekend for the Grizzlies, who controlled the opening part of the series. Everett Catlett got Nick Kurtz, the big leaguer, to ground out, but that was after Kurtz had already gone deep in the game. That hurt Catlett's start 5 2/3, only the blemish given up to the rehabbing big leaguer. The Grizzlies saw 3 big leaguers on the weekend. TJ McFarland threw on Tuesday, Brady Basso threw on Sunday, and the Ports took the final 2 games of the series as they won 5-1 on Saturday, and then finished off the weekend with a 6-3 victory over the Grizzlies on Sunday. Fresno falls to 11 games back in the California League North Division in the first half. 9 games remaining as the Grizzlies will have their final homestand of the first half this week against Modesto. The series begins on Tuesday night at 6:50. First pitch between the Modesto Nuts, the affiliate of the Seattle Mariners, and the Fresno Grizzlies. On Thursday night, the Grizzlies will take the field as the Malmo Oat Milkers. You can enter to win a signed Oat Milkers jersey. There will be multiple chances to win. Then on Sunday, Father's Day, and the return of pregame catch. But that just highlights a great opportunity to come out this week, as Friday night will be the Fresno Tigers tribute night. The Grizzlies paying homage to the 1946 West Coast Negro League team with some of the best uniforms in baseball. Saturday night is GrizzCon and the rescheduled appearance of Kate Flannery, better known as Meredith from The Office. A whole bunch of cards and collectibles to peruse throughout the ball game on the concourse, and then you can take a picture with Meredith and say hello to Kate Flannery, one of the kindest and funniest people in the business. And then Sunday is the return of pregame catch on Father's Day. Come on the field at 4:05, first pitch at 5:05, the first Sunday night game of the season, as the Grizzlies have their final series of the first half this week against the Modesto Nuts. Modesto just a couple of games back in the North Division, and the Grizzlies looking to build momentum towards the second half.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of In the Den. And special thanks to Dave Keller, the Grizzlies bench coach, for taking time out. And we hope you enjoyed the tour around Banner Island Ballpark, a special place here in Stockton in the California League and just a part of baseball history. On behalf of the Fresno Grizzlies, I'm Tim Slack. We'll see you next week.